Hello, everybody, and welcome to our webinar, Education in the Gemini Era. I'm so excited to join you this evening, this afternoon, this morning, wherever you may be in the world. I am Dan Fitzpatrick, and as you can probably tell from my accent, I am in England, in the northeast of England, a place called Newcastle. And it's great to get to spend this next hour with you as we explore Google Gemini, but also the impact it's having. Okay, I think that's what excites me most about the next hour, is we're going to really dive into use cases and the impact. We hear a lot about artificial intelligence and education, maybe not so much about the actual impact. So that's why I'm excited for today. If you're looking at the screen thinking, who is this guy? Let me just give you a bit of an introduction. So my name is Dan. I'm an author on artificial intelligence and education. I was a high school teacher for a number of years and worked in college education before that. I write for Forbes on the intersection of AI and education and the future of education. And I help schools, districts, colleges, and businesses around the world with their strategy towards artificial intelligence and learning. And I'm really lucky I get to travel the world and meet educators from every corner of the globe to talk about how these tools are having an impact and how to implement them in a safe way. Please do, if you're watching, if you want to hear more, I have a newsletter that goes out every Sunday called the AI Educator. So please do get over to the AIeducator.io, sign up, and you can hear thought pieces, tips, news around AI and education every single week. I just wanted to have a look, see who's joining us right now. Thank you so much for watching us on YouTube, on Facebook, on LinkedIn, wherever you are in the world. Please do in the chat introduce yourself, tell us where you are joining us from. And I just want to give a special shout out to a few people who told me when they subscribed that they were joining as part of a stream party. Now, a stream party, if you've ever watched my webinars before, I really encourage you to get together with another group of educators, whether they be in your school, and you invite them into your classroom after the end of school to watch this together and share the experience together, share tips, share thoughts on this. So we had Tanzila Sheikh, we had Jen Sponer, Daniel Kolink in the Netherlands, Alice Strenger in the US, Maki in Mexico, Susan in the USA, Adolfo in Nicaragua, David in Kenya, Athar in Pakistan, and Hina in Saudi Arabia tell us that they'll be watching this as part of a stream party. So thank you so much for gathering people together to watch this. And everybody else who's watching on your own, you have got the community there in the chat to share ideas and your thoughts. So a few months ago, in March, Google released some case studies about the impact that their artificial intelligence was having in education. And I read through all these case studies and looked at kind of some of the impact that it was having. And I was really impressed, and it led me to write this article on Forbes, 8 schools innovating with Google AI, and here's what they're doing. At that moment, I thought I need to speak to some of these. I want to get in contact with them. I want to see what that looks like practically. I'd love to visit one day some of these guys, but next best thing and better for all of us is that we've gathered some of them here today on this webinar, and they're going to be answering your questions. So if you've got any questions for them, please feel free to put them in the chat, and we'll have a look at them as we go through. And they'll be sharing information about how it's impacting them, and literally some of them are going to share their screen and show you exactly what they are doing. So I want to introduce everybody who's going to be with us. We have got Jennie Magiera, we've got Tom D'Amico, Matthew Gunkel, Jeff Edwards, and Stephen Butschi. These are representatives from Google for Education, from the Ottawa Catholic School Board, and from the University of California, Riverside, and I'm going to bring them all in now. And I've got to bring them all in individually. I didn't realize I would have to do that. There we go. Thanks for joining us, everybody. It's great to see your real faces and not the cartoon faces. Um, I'm really looking forward to this hour, and I was thinking, why don't we go through each of you, and could you just tell us who you are, what your role is, and where you work? And we'll start from the top left hand corner, and we'll start with Tom first.
Great, thanks, Dan. Pleasure to be with you. Thanks, everyone, for joining. My name is Tom D'Amico, and I'm the Superintendent or Director of Education. It's equivalent of a CEO for the Ottawa Catholic School Board. We're publicly funded, and we have 89 schools serving 50,000 schools, and we have adopted AI and embraced AI right across our district.
Amazing, thanks, Tom. And we'll go next to Stephen.
Hi, everyone. I'm Stephen Butschi, and I lead our go-to-market team on the Google for Education side, based in New York. And it's great to see so many folks from Europe and North America. I'm really excited for our chat today. Mexico, it's great.
Thanks. Stephen, I don't know if you were willing to share this publicly, but do you want to tell everyone who you just saw?
Oh, yes. I'm walking through the JFK airport. I guess it's the benefit of going the day after the Met Gala. And Halle Berry walks by, and so I smile, and she smiles. I didn't realize who it was. And then 30 seconds later, it dawns on me, oh, that's Halle Berry. So I should have roped her in, Dan. You're right. I should have had her join the live stream. Come on, Halle.
I would have opened a new window for her. She could have joined us. Yeah, so Stephen's just had a moment with Halle Berry, which is, yeah, amazing. Thanks, Stephen. Jeff.
Hi, Dan, and thanks for including us in the webcast, and thanks for featuring us in the Forbes magazine. I work with Tom. I'm a superintendent of learning technologies in the Ottawa Catholic School Board, and that's the equivalent of a CIO. So I'm looking forward to today.
Thanks, Jeff. Matthew.
Great, thanks. So I'm Matt Ruckle. I'm in University of California, Riverside. Been in higher education about 20 years. And, excited to talk about the things we're doing.
Amazing. Thank you, Matthew. And Jennie.
Hey, everyone. Jennie Magiera here from Google, coming to you from Chicago.
Fantastic. Thank you. So the idea of this is we've got 55 minutes. I just want to have a bit of a free flow conversation, a long form conversation. We've got some themes we want to touch on. When people registered for this webinar, they put questions towards us. So I've taken Gemini and I've got it to distill those questions down into some main themes, so that we get a chance to touch upon all those themes in this session. But first of all, I suppose the Googlers on the call, Jennie and Stephen, you are the guys who are kind of making these tools available for educators around the world. So I thought, why don't we start with you? And I suppose over the last few years, artificial intelligence has kind of taken the world by storm, and as part of that, Google has brought the world Gemini. What's the vision there behind artificial intelligence, behind Gemini, and how you see it impacting education, how you see it helping education? And should we start with Jennie?
Yeah, happy to. So I think that it's important for everyone to understand. I think to show kind of under the hood and how it's built. And for what it's worth, for all of you who I haven't met out in the internet universe, I'm an educator by background, as you mentioned, Dan. I know you taught in high school. I taught from kindergarten through higher ed as well. And did the thing where I was in central office over the summer, writing lesson plans and trying to tie how we're teaching to frameworks of best practices. And there's so many people who are trying to look at like the tools and the way we teach and then all the research. Google wanted to take time as we're building out with this really powerful tool that is Gemini to have humility in this space and to base the work off of all the research that practitioners are doing all throughout the year, both in higher ed institutions where they're researching learning principles and learning sciences, as well as on the ground in classrooms all over the world. And so we have a team at Google called the pedagogy team or pedagogy team. That's a hot button topic. If it's pedagogy or pedagogy, we could have a different webinar about that. But that team met with lots and lots of learning science experts all over the world and distilled 5 learning science principles. Dan, if you want to pop over to my screen, that became the way that we build Learn LM. So these learning science principles, for all of you educators out there, you're going to smile and nod. You'll be like, yep, that tracks. Active learning, managing cognitive load, like not just giving them the answer, but like making sure you're kind of making them work for it, but not making them, want to give up or throw their Chromebook out the window. Metacognition, educators' favorite word, the thinking about thinking. We want our learners to be curious, and we want to make sure that as we're building tools for them, it's adapting to the learner. It's differentiating in real time. Now, as they're building out new Gemini models and tools using Google AI, it's all based on something called Learn LM. So if you go to that next, or I think I'm controlling it now. You just show my screen. Look at that. I have the power. So as I go to the next screen, you can see that this is kind of how it works. So those learning science principles build what we call Learn LM, which is a family of models that is purpose-built for teaching and learning. And as Learn LM's experimental group of models learns how can we make AI optimized for the learner, it then feeds into Gemini and all the different ways that Gemini works with you. So as you're accessing, Gemini.google.com or any of the Gemini Gemini tools, you're getting the power of Learn LM. And it's this cycle that keeps feeding and feeding and feeding. So it's really exciting to work at Google right now as someone who's an educator at heart, to see how all the work that we're doing is paying homage to live practitioners, to researchers, and then building that all into the way we think about leveraging AI for this very important cause of helping learners around the world.
Amazing. Thank you, Jenny. And Stephen, do you want to jump in here and tell us about some of the tools out there that educators are getting to grips with right now?
Yeah, and I'll add to Jenny's point. So I was at ASU GSV a few weeks ago, and it was interesting because there was a conversation around blockchain, and people said, why haven't we seen all the benefits yet of blockchain? I believe that, to Jenny's point on AI and the power that we can leverage from it, I think we've talked about personalized learning for so long, and now we actually have some of the tools that can help personalize. Just how you're talking about, Dan, that you took all these questions and you personalized the questions for this webinar using the help of AI. And we were talking about, well, why didn't it work for blockchain? It seemed like it had so much purpose and promise, and now there's this big flow with AI and this big wave. And what I think that the key is this screen that I think we've actually created the user interface that it's really hard to access blockchain. It's very hard to think, how are we going to use that to change credentials and transcripts, et cetera? But Gemini, anyone can get on, start to see the power, and as they're playing around with things. So I really believe in the power of play, and I think that it's a great example of why I believe we're now at the cusp where there's so much that we can actually do with AI to personalize education and realize this dream that we've been talking about for so many years. And so one of those tools that I will quickly show, if you want to share my screen, is a lot of you might be educators or school leaders, and there's a tool called Notebook Plus or Notebook LM that is super powerful. And you add a new notebook, and the idea is that it grounds it in your sources as opposed to the broader web. And so you can upload YouTube, websites, Google Docs, Google Slides, PDFs, audios. You can imagine and Matt will probably speak to this, but during the final season, we've got a lot of students that log in. They're taking audio recordings from their lectures, or taking curriculum from their content from the lectures, their own notes from Google Docs, notes that their friends have shared. They're uploading it into into Notebook LM, and then I'll show you an example. I took this YouTube meeting of a 9-hour board meeting from a school in Florida, and I quickly uploaded it, and it gave me really quickly a quick summary of what they were talking about. But then the power, and I'll show you this in real time actually, where I come over here, I'm going to add a source. So I'm going to add this YouTube video. It's going to start summarizing it. And you'll see here that on the right-hand side, there's this idea of a deep dive conversation. So you can click generate. I happen to bike to work every day, and I love to listen to podcasts. And what's even better is when I've got a long strategy document that I need to read and I don't have time to read it, upload it in Notebook LM, create this podcast, and then I use it and listen to it when I bike to work. And so it's a wonderful way to start to engage. You're taking video, turning it into text, turning it into podcasts. There's so many ways you can create study guides from it, et cetera. So what I love is looking at board meetings, for example. You can go in and get this audio overview, and then it will prompt you questions like, what steps is Broward County School Board taking to address student enrollment trends? So it's really powerful to see how this is going to open up new ways that we can engage with content and hopefully save us a little bit of time as well.
Yeah, and I know it's a favorite. I think ever since Notebook kind of entered the scene, it's been loved by educators around the world. We had Stephen Johnson who co-created Notebook LM on one of our webinars late last year, and it's just amazing how much it's improved, and the features we've had since then as well. I think just last week they added 50 languages to the audio overview feature.
You're spot on, and I'm seeing people also talking about the way you can interject questions now. So that's this interactive mode with beta. So if I play this podcast,
deep dive. You said
you can then click interactive, and if you can hear this, okay.
welcome to the deep dive. You said it's a fascinating document this time.
Oh, hey, our listener wants to join in. What's up?
So I click join, and yeah, I'm curious. I'm reading about the appointment of a new director of accounting and financial reporting. Can you tell me more about that?
Oh, hey there. Welcome. Absolutely. We can definitely unpack that a bit more for you.
It's right at the beginning of the school board meeting, and it does seem quite significant.
Okay, so where do we start with this appointment?
Well, logically, with the introductions themselves.
Right. There was some
I won't let you go through the whole thing because I know we've got limited time, but I'm seeing Jeremy and Stella on the feed talking about how they've used this feature to get deeper into that content. And I'd highly recommend it because, to your point, Dan, there's so many features coming out every day.
Yeah, it's amazing. And if you haven't tried it, if you watch this and think, I haven't tried Notebook LM, if you do a Google search for Notebook LM or notebooklm.google.com, and you will find it. I suppose I want to get something kind of addressed early on, because as educators become more and more savvy to artificial intelligence and the tools that they are using in their classroom, one of the biggest questions I get, and rightfully so, I guess, is kind of the data privacy, the ethics side of these tools. I'll just want to hand over to you guys just to kind of get your take on that and the Google tools before we move on. Otherwise, there will be people who are watching being, yeah, but what about this? What about this? So let's address that first. If any, Stephen or Jenny,
I'm happy to jump in because I'm so glad you're asking that question, Dan, because a lot of times people just start using tools and you're like, wait, how are they using that data and what are they doing with it? So I have 2 tips for folks. The first one is make sure you understand the terms of service. For example, does the provider decide to keep your data confidential? Does it abide by your terms of service you have for other services? For example, with Google, we have now embedded Notebook LM and the Gemini app into our core terms of service for Workspace. So if you're using Gmail or Google Docs or Google Drive for your schools and you're logging in with that same education account, Gemini app and Notebook LM are going to abide by the same terms. So that includes, for example, those in the United States, FERPA compliance, and it's all free of charge. So that's really important that you think about what are they doing with our data. And now we're excited that you can now rest assured that if you're using your school account, anything you could put in Google Drive and that might be PII or anything that's personal, we're going to use the same care of that when we use it in Gemini app or Notebook LM. The second piece that I'd also recommend for folks is think about not only when you are thinking about your data privacy and security, but how are you also teaching students about using that when they first log in? Because I think that's a big part of the ethical consideration. Like, how are you teaching them about bias and hallucinations? So one thing we're working on with that Learn LM layer that Jenny was showing is on our onboarding experience. We have an AI literacy resources program that includes things like Be Internet Awesome and our recently launched AI responsibility curriculum. So that gives students a grounding in what does this tool do and how should I use it? And we're also working with folks like Connect Safety and Family Online Safety Institute to think through these sorts of AI literacy resources. So I would say those are 2 things. And in that AI literacy is a good question, your point, Dan, of how are they using this data? What am I offering them as I'm using this service? And I think that's really important to go through.
Amazing. Thanks, Stephen. And if you're watching and you do have any more questions, do please get them in the chat, and we should have a bit of time left at the end, hopefully, to get them to Stephen and Jenny. Right, I want to bring in the guys from Ottawa and from UC Riverside, and I want to have a look at, first of all, the AI's impact on teaching and the educator experience, I guess. So I want to first of all have a look at kind of the efficiency. It's the first one that first kind of use case that a lot of people go to, AI can help with efficiency. Have you guys had any experience with this in your integration of Google AI? And Tom, I noticed your mic came straight off there, so please do jump in.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. It's really interesting. It's a great question because we need to move away from the theory of what AI might be able to do to looking at what it's really doing today. And that's what really excites me is our staff have embraced it. They're using it. It's making a difference. So when I look at that first component of automation, that's where staff are using it for feedback. They're creating curriculum. They're changing reading levels. They're using it for image generation. They're modifying the language, whether it's for tone or for the audience. But then they're moving to augmentation. So we just saw Notebook LM, and that's where we're seeing things they couldn't do in the past. Quick example, Notebook LM, one of our board of trustees has visual impairments. We're doing a budget documentation, which has tons of data, lots of numbers. And by throwing that into Notebook LM, he was able to participate. He could listen to the podcast before the meeting and then participate with active questions. So great practical use happening today. Lots of language features where we have English language learners in many of our classrooms amongst 50,000 students. But the final part, I'll make it brief, that excites me is the transformation. And that's where our staff are using the tools. I mean, Gemini is one of the AI suite that we use in our board, but they're using a variety of tools to do things that they couldn't do in the past. An example that I know Jeff will do some demonstrations, but we have students in grade 10 that don't know coding. And it doesn't have to be a coding class. It can be a geography, a religion, a social studies class. They're looking at the UN sustainability goals, development goals, and they're doing activities like, how can I use AI to help me code, create a website so fellow students can find access to hospitals, to shelters, help students that have dyslexia. These are 15 and 16-year-olds that are using AI, using Gemini to create real products that are making a difference in the lives of fellow students. And that's exciting because that's transforming education. So there's a quick response of what's happening in our board.
I love that. The whole accessibility side of AI, I don't think gets talked about enough. I think there's a lot of conversation around, well, do we need this or do we not need it? And there's not as much conversation around, well, what about the people who do need it? Why? Like, let's have a look and see how it can help them. So I love that. Matthew, do you want to jump in and tell us a bit about how you guys are using it for teacher efficiency at UC Riverside?
Yeah, thanks, Dan. It's interesting. I mean, everything that Tom said, right? It's a yes and conversation. And, at UCR, I mean, we've been leveraging Notebook LM now for over a year. We've actually been looking at, we've been building it into our writing program. They've actually been doing a comparative A/B study on students' abilities to really, leverage it and enhance their own understanding of writing outcomes, but then also on the faculty side to really, dig in and get a sense for its effectiveness, right? As you're looking at different efficacy models. Jennie had a great slide, right? Running through the details on, different learning concepts and how do we start to incorporate this in. I think for UCR, we're also really trying to understand where can our faculty leverage this initially. There's a lot of sort of conversation around, do we need to protect it? Do we need to go hunt for AI and find it in the classroom? And instead really trying to get people to lean into authentic assessment concepts and where can we actually be incorporating this into the pedagogy effectively. We actually had, as a pickup after the news article, we actually had KTLA here in LA pick it up and come and interview one of our faculty members and a group of students on that Notebook LM use, which was fantastic. School of Business really looking at how they do critical thinking, where they're using it for, advanced business analysis. And again, just getting it directly in the hands of students, getting it in the classroom, on the daily, and, really making it exciting, having the accessibility and really sort of helping close the technology gap, with availability from Google is absolutely fantastic.
Amazing. Thanks, Matthew. It's great to hear that. Jeff, do you want to jump in there? Tom said you might have something to show us as well. Do you want me to pull up your screen?
Yeah, no, I'd like that, Dan, and I appreciate that. And we've really appreciated our partnership with Google. One of the early decisions that we made was to give Google Gemini for Workspace to all of our principals, to our executive team, and to our senior coordinators, so they would practice and then be able to model. So what I wanted to do was show just from the simple examples through to some more complicated ones maybe, but super quickly, just a quick idea of some of the things that I know I've personally used that we see replicated in the classroom and with our senior team. So one simple one that I wanted to show just to start with was we do honors and awards in my department. And so one of the things we get, this is just an example, the Devon Hay Award, recognize somebody with academic proficiency, contribution to school, contribution to the greater community. So we're able to upload all of these submissions and then use a prompt with Gemini, just so it overlays when you use the Gemini for Workspace. Use a prompt to say, could you summarize this for me? Now, I'm not going to do it in real time. I tried to get it done ahead of time so that you could just quickly see it. But at the bottom, when I press go on the prompt, it gives me exactly that. Now, I do want to ensure that you understand that I still read everything. But what happens is when you have the summary, now it's a minds on. And after I've read 16 or 17 of these, plus reference letters, plus, it's all fresh in my mind. So just a quick, you can imagine guidance counselors and teachers who are doing reference letters, things like that.
That's brilliant, Jeff.
I also did a quick workshop with human resources. What tends to happen when you do interviews is people kind of go in a filing cabinet, get the same old questions they did before. But to be able to use Gemini, I needed to get a new learning technologies coordinator and to ask in a prompt, I'm a superintendent of learning technologies. I said 15 questions. I want some to be icebreakers, some to be emotional quotient questions. I want scenario questions, and then to edit it down to what I actually wanted. But then I also even further to be able to say, give me a sample strong response, give me some relevant bullet points to support, and give me a marking scheme. Also give me a text box that I can use in that. And so within 10 minutes, I had a pretty good interview. Plus you add the editing and it's about 15 minutes, but I have relevant questions. Moving on, Notebook LM, I think is a really nice flow to this podcast because I can kind of move into this. One of the things one of my coordinators provided as the example for Notebook LM when we did in-service with all of our professionals at our monthly meeting was she uploaded all of our policies and procedures. And that's, I think, 237 policies and procedures into a Notebook LM. And then what you can do is with Notebook LM, I can go into the box. And I did this one before. I said, tell me about, am I allowed to bring any other animal other than a guide dog into a school? And it found the policy document and it gives me the answer in the middle. So that's an excellent use. And so the workflow next year will be when we have updated policy documents, we just need to update the Notebook LM. This was shared out to all the principals and now they have their own. They were super excited about that because they don't have to search and figure out what policy documents are relevant. Moving on to this one here. So we had a bill in Ontario that was launched called Bill 194. And it's called the Enhanced Digital Security and Trust Act. And it wasn't an education act. It was brought by the Public and Business Service Delivery and Procurement Department. So in this document, I needed to read it. It's very long, very boring. I needed to read it, but the questions I asked of it is, what are the implications for K-12 in education? And so that created a note, which gave me those implications. Further, I said, okay, we'll now anticipate what regulations could come from this, because the bill is one thing, but we need the regulations. What regulations will come for school boards? And then finally, I said, well, when we write policies in the Ottawa Catholic School Board, it has a certain format. I put in the format and I said, well, if you were to write a policy document based on this, what would it look like? And it did that. Now, I'm not using it yet because we still need the regs to drop, but when they do drop, we're going to be ready with those sources.
Can I jump in there, Jeff? And
Absolutely.
I actually want to show my screen for a second, Dan, and build on this on the policy side.
Please do.
Yeah, let's go for it. While I'm switching that over, we have had a question come in to ask what kind of formats can be uploaded? What kind of file types could be uploaded? So everyone wants to jump in on that, and I'll quickly switch the screens over.
Maybe the Google folks should answer that. It's their thing.
Yes, for Notebook LM, you can do Google Docs, Google Slides, websites, YouTubes. You can copy and paste text. You can do PDFs, .txts, markdowns, audios like MP3. So there's a variety of different types of formats that you can upload for Notebook LM.
That's amazing, and thanks for Maury who asked that question. Matthew, over to you.
Yeah, so just building on Jeff, so his policy example here. So we actually have this live sitting on UCR's policy site. So it's called Policy King. The title always kind of cracks me up. But you'll see here, like you've got all of our policies, some very old, some relatively new. As you can imagine, most universities are slow at policy. But up here in the search, we've got a Gemini actually embedded. And you can sit here and ask questions like, my child is sick, right? And here's a generated answer. And then you can sort of see that like it's saying like, yes, right? Like you can do this. It's actually going to reference which policies. It's showing you which 5, and then you can go and actually read them for yourself and understand. You can put in a different question, and then it'll come in here and have a look. We're also using this like on the legal side, right, to really understand how to work on our policies. So, what is it? Data is worthless without AI, and AI is powerless without data. And so, so basically trying to understand where our data is poor and where do we need to also work to refine that information, that data, which I think is part of the point Jeff was making, right? Which is like, how do we start getting that information in a place and a shape that it's usable and that we can start working with it in meaningful ways?
Yeah, amazing. Thanks, Matthew. I love that Gemini search bar at the top there. I'll have to message you and ask you how you did that. We probably don't have time to do it right now, but yeah, well, if I find out, I'll share it online as well so that people can see how you did that. What about your teachers, your educators? Has anyone gone deep down the path of trying to train them up and provide structured professional development to get all of your teachers equipped with this? And what have you found works, what hasn't worked, and how are you getting on with that? I think just reassuring some of the people listening that I suppose change management is difficult, but yeah, it'd be great to know how you guys are getting on. So Tom, I don't know if you want to come back in there.
Yeah, sure. And that's an area that is so important. So we spent a year of learning. So we labeled it as a year of learning. So we'd have entry points for everyone. Lots of lunch and learns, breakfast and learns, where we provide the food, staff can come, there's no release time needed, lots of sharing, building capacity, sending people to conferences, running book clubs, partnering with a local university or college as well to bring those in. Then sharing our own summits, so our staff that are trying different pilots, letting them go and present to colleagues. We've just finished our first cohort of an AI certification program where we partnered with some of the vendors, including Google, and our staff would go after hours, and they did 6 different modules. They became AI certified. We just did our celebration. So we're building capacity across all of our different schools in the system, and we're celebrating. So any entry point we can find, whether it's a virtual conference, it's a book club, it's someone sharing, that's really important. And that's helped us build over that first year to the point that we now have over 4,000 staff that are using different components of AI.
Wow, that's impressive. That really is. Matthew, what about at UC Riverside? How are you guys approaching the professional development of your colleagues?
Yeah, that's a great question, Dan. So, for us, we're heavily leaning into, we've got LinkedIn Learning and then Google Skills or Google Cloud Skills Boost, right? So we've really been touting really specific trainings that we want people to go and use. But then we've been building a large community of practice. And so we've been pulling together a lot of faculty. We also have a new institute for AI called RAISE. And so those people are getting together, in Slack, in different Friday lunch and learn sessions. And, they're really building out, prompts, they're building out ideas. I would really say they're building out tools or concepts around the tools that we have available, and then looking at where they're finding effective uses and or where they're finding challenges, right? Where something didn't quite do what they thought, or they ran an activity and the outcome wasn't exactly what they expected. Might not have been bad, but just might not have been what they anticipated as either what students did. Of course, they're inventive and they have a lot of great imaginations, and they're coming at these problems from a lot of different ways. And so we also are using our Center for Teaching and Learning. They're running ongoing sessions, so faculty can come and attend and get best practices. That's really more from a pedagogical perspective. How can they actually incorporate AI into their classroom, into their activities? So I would say that that's like an entry in. Then we sort of say go get the training, join the community, build from there, right?
Fantastic. Yeah, no, it's great to hear that. And I think districts and schools and colleges all around the world are going down that journey at the moment. And we're still seeing lots of data out there from research that there's a lot of teachers missing out on PD. So I think all the help that our educational leaders can get, the better. Let's just shift gear a bit. I think we've kind of focused primarily on the teacher, the educator, the institution. Let's shift gear a little bit more towards the learner. And I think one of the buzzwords we hear a lot when it comes to AI and learning is personalization. And I know we've touched upon it briefly so far. Are any of you guys having real success or impact with AI personalizing learning kind of for the organization? I know there are a lot of kind of individual one-off examples, but is anyone seeing personalization happening on a organization-wide basis? Yeah, go for it, Matthew.
I can jump in again there, Dan. So if you actually want to go back to the screen share for a second. So one of the things that we've been looking at, was next 2 weeks ago, Stephen, or was it 3 weeks ago?
It feels like it was about 2 to 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, or maybe more. Anyways, at Google's conference, they announced a number of new things. One of them is the AI Development Kit, or ADK. And so one of the things that we've been doing is we've been actively looking at how we start building agent-to-agent interactions. I've heard this use case a lot, which is basically, how do I rebuild my help desk? How do I start putting an agent on top of that? There are a lot of companies that do that. There are a lot of things that already have that in place. But what's interesting about what we've built here is that it's on the new ADK. And so while this is a functional, I'll call it a demo, this is how do I reset my password, right? So this is now connected in not only to our ServiceNow instance, this is also connected into a set of Google Docs information. But what's interesting here is now the speed at which we can manage the information that Gemini is now pulling in, as far as building the knowledge set out. This agent can also now be combined and talk with other agents. And so we're in the process this week, actually, of making some of those connections to additional agents. So you can now build it out and connect it against Notebook LM. You can connect it to other bespoke agents. And so that's what we're in the process of doing currently, which is sort of the super exciting use case, because now you can have really bespoke or customized areas of engagement and build on it from an administrative perspective. So I'm going to walk through what I would call a more boring prompt. So if you remember, I'm a CIO, so I have a CISO, a chief security officer, that reports to me. And so one of the things that we've been doing, we do this large, deep analysis on software tools. And so right now it's a very manual process, takes us weeks, if not months sometimes, to do this analysis. And so we started building out controlled prompts that we can feed into Gemini, specifically into deep research in advanced. So if you've not seen the deep research advanced prompt, go take a look. It does some amazing work. It takes a second to run, but it's really good. It gives you this kind of output. So this was a 28-page document, that is specific to the prompt, specific to UCR's ask. This aligns to the HECVAT, which is a standard document from EDUCAUSE. And so what we then do is we take this and then we summarize it into our preferred format for purchasing. So what used to literally take the team weeks they're now able to assemble and submit in a matter of days. We're now working on how do we iteratively build trust with this? How does the team actually understand where to go back and reference this? How do we build this in for audits and different key findings where we need to have supportive documentation? But ultimately, this process now significantly accelerates not only our ability to procure, but also our ability to secure UCR. And so very excited about how we're able to leverage the tools effectively. We envision building this into agents, so it's now more of an automatic workflow, and we're not having to sort of manually cut and paste across it like we are today. But it's a absolutely fantastic starting place. And it's really been able to accelerate where we're headed, at least on the administrative side.
Fantastic. I'm loving that, Matthew. That looks brilliant. And I suppose further down that student route, what about assessment? Again, one of the big questions when it comes to AI is what for higher ed, for K-12 is what does AI mean for assessment? Are any of you guys trying to tackle that now and try to think of how do we maybe update how we measure the progress of our students in a world of AI?
Dan, I can jump in on that, and even to go back a piece on that a little bit. It's what I find. It's not just personalization that is the exciting part of AI. There's a lot of wicked problems in education that haven't been solved in a long time, and it leads right into assessment and evaluation when we look at conversation, observation, and product. Personalization is one, but proximal learning, working with kids with significant IEPs, culturally responsive and relevant pedagogy, opportunities to provide those materials to students, translation. There's so many different things which change the practice and open up the doors to assessment and evaluation. And people really do get focused on product, but if you do focus on those introductory areas and students develop a greater sense of self-efficacy, then you are going to see greater results with students. We're seeing that with many of our softwares. And I look at exciting products like Google's Read Along at Elementary, which tailor directly to a student's abilities. We're going to see real changes and solve some significant problems in education in terms of reading and literacy, and in terms of people being able to apply their knowledge towards mathematics and numeracy that teachers just haven't been able to reach before because of the diversity of the students in front of them. So those are the things that excite me, and the assessment evaluation should really parallel what the individual students are able to do. And again, we never want to be complacent about that. We never want to be judgmental about that with teachers to say, well, why aren't you doing this? Because it's hard. There's 30 kids with multiple levels, and we've never had the tools before to be able to address that.
Thanks, Jeff. Yeah. I think you're right, and it's so multifaceted, and I guess one of the things, isn't it? It's not just how might our students use AI within the classroom or within their studies, but also how might they learn about AI for the future world, for the world that they're going into, so that they can build those skills as well. How are you guys approaching that? Because I suppose it's the other side of the coin, really, isn't it, of using AI in education to help education, but then also that other side of preparing our students. Has anyone on the call started to address that yet and started to maybe put some things in place? Tom?
Yeah, we've mandated AI literacy right across our district. So starting with 4-year-olds, so kindergarten to grade 12. So we have a program called Samaritans on the Digital Road. It's 5 lessons, but it has to be taught by every teacher, every grade level. And then it changes each year so that it progresses as the students mature and the students age. So it's always relevant. We also required all of our staff in the first 2 days of the school year to have a discussion at every grade level about what students know and think about AI, and come up with a set of class rules for using AI. And they used a chatbot. So we modeled the use of AI during that discussion. So it's not mandated by our government, but we're not waiting for the government. We're saying this is a skill that's essential for every student to learn. So it's happening right across our district every year.
Brilliant. Thanks, Tom. And Matthew, I don't know if you want to jump in there. I suppose your students are closer in proximity to the workplace. Have you guys started to implement any AI literacy courses or anything like that?
So yes, I don't know that we've done it as broadly as we're hoping, right? So I think we've got some plans in place. I know the community has been actively looking at and recommending some resources that faculty are bringing in on the literacy side, but we haven't developed yet a formal course. Our Center for Teaching and Learning, I would say they're in like the initial planning stages for what that should look like. I think our concern is really the pace at which we have to now maintain that kind of material. Which is again why we continue to drive people into the community, because then it's more organic in the level of engagement. I couldn't have begun to have guessed all of the things that the different companies have been announcing, the different feature sets that are forthcoming. And so trying to balance our resources as we do that level of engagement. I think we're also trying to learn from the students. So many of them are out playing with so many tools. The volume is kind of crazy right now. And so trying to also let them tell us where we need to be doing more work to help support them. So it's definitely an area of interest, but I think it's something that we're really working to evolve into and make sure we've got an effective strategy around. Because once we're built, our ability to iterate on course material is sometimes not always what it should be.
Well, Matt, and you bring up a good point that a lot of folks, whether it's each campus or school district, they're trying to create baseline materials. And so we were thinking from a Google perspective, how can we actually help and create something that would be baseline so you're not all recreating that and you can customize it? So Jennie's team, and I'll let Jennie take over, and because there's K-12 and higher ed, we both have a new course that recently came out that could be very helpful. So Jennie, I'll let you talk about that.
Yeah, so if you want to hop over to my screen, Dan, I'm sharing, we have a learning center online that's free. And I also saw that Tom, you had asked, Tom T, if we're offering free online training. The answer is yes. This is available in many languages around the world. And we have an entire section on the Learning Center with free training on Google's AI tools, on Gemini, and all of the fun things that we're doing. So we have a module for K-12 and for higher ed. And then when you click into it, and it's built with that teacher who's like a little bit nervous to get started. I remember I was an instructional technology coach at one point of my career, and I walked into an after school professional development. The teachers were like still on the clock to be taking. So they had to be there. And the front of the library, I walked in, I was like rolling in my cart of devices, and they looked up and they literally ran away from me. Like, not metaphorically, there was a door in the back of the training room, and they all got up and were like, I have to go to the bathroom, and never came back. So like, I understand the fear and the anxiety that comes with like learning something new. So as we built it, we wanted it to be really simple, really approachable, very bite-sized. It's 2 hours max. I've heard a lot of educators can get through this in like 45 minutes, but it's supposed to like unpack everything for you, from like, what is AI? What's the difference between AI and generative AI? There's little walkthroughs for you. It takes you through all the different use cases. It talks about that data privacy that we were having that conversation before. And then it takes you through real life lesson plans that you can think about, like, okay, so this is all very high level, but what does this look like in my classroom? And that's why we did break it down into a higher ed and a K-12 version. The other thing that we have on this site too is a link to our friends over at Kids and Family at Google built out teaching responsible use of AI. And it's a set of lesson plans for grades 7 through 12 to use in your classroom with your students. So if you want to help your grade 7 through 12th graders use AI, there's all these lesson plans in here with objectives, everything you need, all the resources to have a responsible AI literacy course within your own classroom. And it's very modular, so you can use it with as many instructional minutes as you want to use or don't. So these are just a couple of the resources. We're constantly building out new ones, and we're trying to keep them, again, very bite-sized because we know how busy educators are.
Amazing. Thanks for sharing that. And Tom in the chat asked, are Google offering online free training modules? So you've answered his question there. So hopefully that has helped, Tom. Yeah, let's have a look at kind of the I suppose, where do we go from here? And I know we've only got an hour, and we probably could have done at least 3 hours on showcasing so many examples and use cases. And maybe we will in a future webinar spend a bit longer on this. But I want to get to kind of, I suppose, the strategic side of this. Everyone on this call is an educational leader, and I like to think of strategy in kind of two different ways. The first way is kind of the linear innovation. What are we doing to make sure that our current goals, the things that we currently do, our systems, our processes are happening maybe more efficiently, maybe through a bit more linear innovation. And I think AI is helping with that massively, doing what we've always done, but maybe faster, maybe with that efficiency, for example. But there's also the other side of innovation, isn't there? The other side of strategy, and that is what about 5 years time? Well, what could this offer? Where could this go? And I know everybody on this call, as well as addressing the needs of educators and your organizations in the here and now, will also be thinking about strategically, what could our schools, what could our colleges look like in 5 years' time with this technology? Are any of you beginning to build that kind of longer term strategy and think about how you might position your organization to benefit from the advanced AI that we will likely see in the next few years? Matthew.
So I can go. So I think this is an interesting one for me, Dan, because when I think about this, I actually look backwards, not forwards, in order to understand maybe what the opportunity is. And so when I look back to what is a higher educational institution and how did we originally organically become, right? It's because we had an individual who was excessively deep in an area of knowledge. And people would quite literally travel to hear that person speak, right? And hear their thoughts written down, on chalkboards. And when you consider that, and you consider sort of what that means, before we were in this age of sort of like discovery, like how do I get information? How do I consume and synthesize that information? And I actually think we're going to return to a state where we're now actually looking at people who have deep knowledge in specific areas. Because so much information will now be available at our fingertips. Our ability to create content, our ability to expeditiously synthesize the information, that we'll actually now need to return to, but where's the value of the human? And how are we putting the person back at the forefront of what we're doing? And then leveraging the underlying technical tools effectively against their deep understanding of that knowledge. And I guess to end on an analogy here, it would be, what world do you want to live in? And so when you look at, sci-fi and different concepts, I want to live in Star Trek, right? When you look at the engineers sitting at the belly of the Enterprise, they were using the technology on advanced concepts to do work, but they weren't being replaced. They needed it, but they also had to understand it. And then they also had to understand where to push its limits. And that's the future that I think is very exciting. And I think that's where we could go with education.
Fantastic. Thanks, Matthew. Yeah, I think that's the important bit, isn't it? It's giving our educators the best tools possible to do their jobs, and to do their jobs. I suppose like we want to do our jobs as educators, and that is spend personal time with our students and help to form those human beings in front of us. Tom, Jeff, over to you guys. How are you guys thinking about maybe the next 5 years with where AI?
Yeah, and it's probably a little different than Matthew, because I don't want to live in Star Trek, because it's not the world I'm envisioning. When I look at Gemini and deep research, it really shows us the need to think more about critical thinking and teach those soft skills so much. It's so important. It's really going to be about not gathering information, but verifying it, adapting solutions to the right cultural, pedagogical impacts, analyzing task completion for the right context. Those are so important. I think 5 years from now, language translation will be conquered. So that's going to be amazing for all of our learners. And I think for us, it's a focus on well-being. So how can we use these tools to help out this generation to be well, to be less time on screen, to be outdoors, to be focusing on relationships. And that excites us as well. So if we do it right, we're going to fix the mistakes we made with social media. And we're going to show our students how to use the tools instead of endless scrolling for a dedicated task that's completed more efficiently, and now have them collaborate with others for critical thinking. So it's more the humanistic side, less the technology.
Amazing. Thank you, Tom. Right, we've got 5 minutes left, and we've got a number of questions from the audience. Some of these are big questions, but can I ask? I'm going to put the question out there. If you really want to answer the question, unmute your microphone and just go for it. Try not to spend more than a minute, if possible, which might be difficult with some of these. The first question is from Tom. Some of the data regulation in the USA was mentioned earlier. Over in the UK and in Europe, we have GDPR. Big hurdle right now. How does Gemini save, share data? Does it abide by GDPR, I guess?
Yeah, I can hop in. Our terms of service have the details. You can confirm that no data from prompts are used to train ads in general. I know that's a common concern. And I use the magic of Google Chat. I reached out to our team in the United Kingdom just now. It's late there. I know you know, Dan. But they were saying that we offer that data protection that a lot of folks are looking for. And just to underscore that, your data remains your data, and our role is to store and process it safely within compliance with GDPR. But again, you can check the terms of service if you're not sure. It's all written there. And fun thing that I do with my children in my home that I live with, sometimes I want to check what's going on with their data. And so I use our tools. I throw in the terms of service into Gemini or to Notebook LM, and I'm like, okay, there's a lot of legalese words here. I live with an attorney. I'm married to one. And I'm like, can you just speak English, please? So you can make it ask the direct questions you want to know. So if you want to drill down, like what's happening, where's it going, it's in those terms of service, and use Gemini as your friend to understand them.
Amazing. Yeah, these guys, if anyone's been watching my screen for this last hour, I've slowly been being submerged into darkness because it's getting late here. Right, the next question. Do most of the powerful features of Gemini need the premium version?
No, there's a lot for free in the Gemini app and in Notebook LM. The way I think about it is if you're bringing your data to the AI, usually it's free. So if you're bringing your data into Gemini app or into Notebook LM, there is a paid version that sits on top of Workspace. So if you want to bring AI into your email or AI into your Google Drive, some of the things that Jeff was showing earlier, that is a premium functionality. I saw a question too about using spreadsheets. That is now the Gemini app the Gemini within Google Workspace, which is a premium edition, does support spreadsheets. So actually, Dan, I'll have you share my screen really quickly. I pulled up an example spreadsheet here, and let's see if you can see it. And you can come in here, you click the Gemini tab, and you can start asking questions like how many students live in Florida, and it will start going through and parsing that data and giving the right answers for you. So 2 students, for example, in this use case, but there is the ability to have free versions on Notebook LM and Gemini app.
Amazing. Thanks, Stephen. I think you might as well stay on here and Jennie as well, because the next one is what Google AI tools, can any of them be used by under 13s?
We are working on it. To the conversation earlier that I think that there is tremendous potential, there's also a lot of considerations. We need to make sure it's a safe experience, that it's pedagogically appropriate. So it is something that we're working on, and we'll come back soon with more details. But I would, in the meantime, make sure that you all are thinking about AI literacy. I loved what you, Tom and Jeff, were mentioning about starting it at 4 years old. And I think that we've seen that it's not just about banning these tools, it's about how do you teach students and when and how to engage with them. And I always think back to a colleague who says, we don't teach our kids, or we don't tell our kids you can't cross the street. We don't ban them from crossing the street. We teach them how to look both ways. And so I think this will be an important part of that literacy journey.
And I think probably many of you saw the news that was announced a few days ago that Google's going to begin allowing kids under 13 who have parent-managed Google accounts to use Gemini chatbot through Family Link. So if you want to go ahead and you can Google it, it's out in the news. There's information about it. But I will say, like, as a parent, I'm really excited about that as well. My daughter sees me using Gemini all the time. She loves talking to her Google Home to ask questions. And I've been playing with it with her under my guidance. So I think that there's a lot about stimulating young learners' curiosity. And I think the intentionality that we heard from the education leaders on this call, bringing that to students of all ages and having the adult in the room as the agent to decide when and how and if is so important.
Amazing. Yeah, me too with my 4 and 5-year-old. They're so creative with it. We're on the hour. And I've left like probably one of the most complex questions to last. But if anyone wants to address it in 30 seconds, maybe point to a resource. But I feel like I don't want to avoid it because I hear this question a lot, and it seems to have grown a lot recently, and that is the impact that LLMs have on climate change, on water use. Jennie or Stephen? Good man.
I'm happy to jump in. I think the first thing I've heard is, when do you need to do a Google search versus use an LLM? And I think that's the first question. And when we talk through literacy, it's about, when do you use it? It's a powerful tool. We're thinking about it in 3 ways. One, how can we reduce the AI footprint or the carbon footprint of training these models? We've gotten it down about 100 times more efficient, reducing 1,000 times, reducing the emissions, and 100 times less energy to train the models. The second we're thinking about is, how do we make our own chips called TPUs? So how can we then build efficiency into those chips? So as we're processing those models, that we can make it effective. And then the third, and this is a little bit meta, this is Captain Kirk for Matt over there, our Star Trek guru, is how do we actually use AI to control our own data centers where AI is happening? And that has actually helped us reduce, for example, the power that we use to cool our data centers. And our data centers at Google are about 1.5 times more efficient than a typical enterprise data center, because we're using AI to actually cool them. So we're thinking about it from a variety of angles, and our commitment is to make sure that you get a very good experience using AI, and also an energy efficient way.
Amazing. Thanks, Stephen. What a job in 60 seconds. Tom and Jeff from Ottawa Catholic School Board, thank you so much. Matthew from University of California, Riverside, Jennie and Stephen from Google, thank you so much. I think all that's left for me to say is, beam us up, Scotty.
Thank you, Dan.